Hey Jade, thanks for coming back onto the podcast.
Hello, Andy. Thank you for having me back.
It's wonderful to have you here. It's actually almost exactly a year since you were last on the show.
I know,
And
spooky, eh?
yeah, oh God, time flies, doesn't it? So I'm sure that most of our listeners will unquestionably know all about you and your business and what you're doing in the property space. But we have, in fairness, accrued a lot of new listeners over the last 12 months. So for anyone, Jade, who perhaps isn't as aware of you and what you're doing, could you kind of bring us back up to speed? Tell us, what you're doing in the property space, about your property businesses and where we're currently at with things.
Sure. So Nottingham based, primarily HMO investor, student rooms, student accommodation. We've got multiple businesses under the Beespace brand. We've got development business, we've got construction, we've got management, we've got consultancy. We've got a nice little lean ecosystem that all kind of works hand in hand. Yeah, and very much led by design, always have been for many years. I guess that's kind of like me summarising it. And most importantly, obviously I forgot to mention this, I'm your mastermind partner as well.
Well,
We host the
yeah.
mastermind together.
Yeah, we're biz partners. We run the mastermind together, and we're
Yeah.
coming into our third year of running the mastermind program as it is now, which is in itself pretty amazing. And especially when I think about who we have been able to work with on the program. I mean, we're not here to talk about mastermind as such today, but it's incredible, and I think the people that we've been able to get in the room and work with and the results that they've had is incredible, like so consistently for 3 years now. So yes, you are I guess you're the brains behind all of that. I just sort of turn up and you make me look good.
No, well, what I do is take notes. You don't.
I think, and for me, I think that this is one of the reasons why we've always worked so well together, is that you have a different approach to business, and you value some things in business slightly differently to me, and you look at things in a different way. And I think I've learned so much from you over the years about this, and actually you've helped me massively with things like the podcast and the roadmap, brand, and kind of and some of the more visual and aesthetic elements of that business that perhaps I don't always see. I'm a bit more sort of black and white, can sort of work a bit more binary, like the numbers, like the processes and systems stuff. And actually, there's much more to it. And you've taught me a huge amount. But that element has always seemed to be almost the pillar of, and kind of the value that always seems to come through everything you do, is that design led way that you approach stuff. And do you think that that's fair to say, Jade? And I know your background was obviously in the commercial world originally. You're sort of doing some incredible sort of commercial design stuff. But do you think that is that still the case? Are you still very true to that element, I suppose?
Oh my God, massively. I mean, for me, it's like stepping into this industry many years ago. It's like it was kind of not acceptable in terms of the way that standards were. They needed to be raised. And I've definitely channeled making a change through by using design as the guiding force through it all, I guess. And I think when I strip that back and I look at my own kind of brand values for the business, it is about making a change and being disruptive and making a difference and making people think differently about the properties that they're developing and why they're developing it in a certain way. And what impact that can have, and they're the values that we run across all the different parts of the Beespace brand, and we're guided by. So, for me, the design side has always been like an opportunity to like disrupt the market and just do better, and that's always been the driver for me in everything.
Your properties have always been the ones that I think not just for me, but for a lot of people in our industry, in the HMO space and the commercial to residential space, the specs that you create and the ideas and the creativity that you demonstrate, I think has always been right. I suppose on the pedestal, I've always looked at your projects and thought, wow, this stuff is absolutely amazing, and that be better, do better. Really, on every single project you do, which is somehow better than the last one every time, which in itself is an amazing feat. But that for me, I think is so true of certainly what I see and what other people see of your businesses, and it's something that you've you've never ever strayed from. You won't do anything unless it first and foremost fits with your brand. And
Yeah.
what I'd really like to talk about today is I suppose the evolution of your business and how the last couple of years has, if it has changed that. I know you do a number of projects. You've got a lot of HMOs. You've got a big construction company, you and Tim, and you've been doing and putting a lot of work into other much larger projects as well yourselves as investors. And I want to talk to you about the evolution of your business alongside the growth of the Hive, which is your own sort of female-only members club, which is an amazing feat in itself. But I want to talk to you about that because it has been a difficult couple of years, I think, across the board, COVID and just the property market in general. It's been a tough market to acquire and to acquire at good value. And one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about today as well is the role that social media is playing for you in all of this. We kind of over a year ago, and before that, I think the first time you joined me on the show, we talked a lot about social media and the importance of that and what we can all be doing to build networks, raise finance, promote ourselves and develop our brands. And there's no doubt that the landscape has changed dramatically in the last couple of years, and we talk about this regularly. Mm-hmm. So I'd really love to get your thoughts on this and see how you've found this and adapted to this and where you think things are going. So can we talk about the evolution of your business first of all, and how things have been in the last 12 months, what sort of things that you've actually been working on? Because I know that you've got your bread and butter stuff, a lot of your HMOs, you manage all this stuff yourself now, and you manage some stuff for other people, but you've been keeping a keen eye and sort of moving more and more into the larger project space, certainly the commercial to residential stuff. Can you talk to us, Jade, about the sort of projects that you've been looking at and how you've found it? Because we've had some really honest conversations, haven't we, over the last 12 months about this, and I think a lot of our listeners would really appreciate your insight into what the market has actually been like and some of the challenges that even you as a really, really experienced developer have found and had to navigate.
I think the first round of changes came COVID, as it did for everybody, when everything opened back up, and the property market just completely lost its mind. Now, to put it into context, we're very, very strategic about what we buy and where we buy, and we have been for many years. So, we're very precise in terms of what something needs to cost, how big it needs to be, the exact street it needs to be on. We stayed very true to all of our own matrix that we follow in our own analysis. Now, what that meant when the market went bonkers after it opened back up is that obviously the house prices rocketed. So that meant that for developers like us, where we were looking at doing stuff, under PD up to 6 rooms, it was purchase prices which was so incredibly inflated that it was not possible. And to do anything inside Article 4 in a housing stock has always been incredibly hard. Not impossible, but incredibly hard. But that just went through the roof in terms of what the existing, and I don't want to go too much on a tangent about Article 4 because you and I can often talk about that in detail, but vendor expectations in terms of gross development value of existing rooms that were tired just went through the roof at the same price as the residential stuff outside of Article 4. And it was like, we are just priced out of any opportunity. So as ever in business, it's kind of like, right, what's the solution for us to continue to grow and move forward with this? So we need to now be looking at bigger things with, larger development possibilities, value add basically at the end. However, within that mix, we dug down even deeper with, okay, well, if we're going to go bigger, the one thing we can just absolutely not miss is, to stay really, really, really true to is the location. Like, location is king in this business, especially on the bigger stuff, because bigger numbers, bigger risk, so on and so forth. You mitigate your own risk by the location and the demand. So for us to go bigger, it's like, okay, we're going to narrow that search engine down in terms of where we're going to buy, and we're going bigger, and we need certain current use classes, and we need this, and we need that. So we've kind of made it harder on ourselves in terms of what we're looking for, because I would probably say, and I don't know, this is hard fact, and you probably might actually, I think where I invest, in the pockets I invest in Nottingham, probably in the top 8% in the country. Like,
Nottingham. I've bought stuff in Nottingham for years. Never any commercial stuff, but it has always been one of those markets that's felt incredibly competitive. Certainly compared to some of the other places I've invested, and or a little bit like Manchester. Like it's always just been, a nose ahead of everywhere else. Really driven by, I think, in part the strength of the population, that young people, young person demographic, the students and the young professionals. Also, a lot of interest in the Northern powerhouse, or a lot of national and international investment piling in, which is really attractive, particularly for people coming up from the south who want to invest money and are looking for better returns. Much better returns than perhaps London, but not necessarily the best in the north by any means. And I would agree. I think it is a really tough and a really competitive market, because it is such a good market if you can get it right. But it's tough to infiltrate that. I remember actually your business partner Kevin Cox came on the show, and that was actually, for anyone who wants to go back and listen, that was episode 29, which feels like a long time ago now, but Kevin is a superb guy, and Kevin really gave us a good insight into what you guys do and are looking at, and how you approach and analyze deals and things like that. It's a really interesting episode. I'd recommend everyone goes back and actually has a listen to that. But with that very active decision that you made to pivot, did you at the same time acknowledge that you'd probably be doing less HMOs, or were you still very much looking for them? Did you say, you know what, for the next few years, our real focus is actually on different buildings, bigger buildings, and investing in a slightly different way?
Yeah, I think that's where our focus is, on the bigger stuff. However, if something was to pop up, I would always be privy to a 5 or 6 bed, because it's the bread and butter stuff, always. But it's definitely, not where the main focus is, because I don't know about, where you are in Sheffield. I'm definitely starting to see online now prices are starting to drop, but not by crazy amounts, because where I invest is creme a la creme. So, that doesn't drastically change. So, yeah, we would definitely love to do some 5 and 6 beds. And we've got one in planning at the moment, which is inside Article 4. But the priority is the big stuff. But the big stuff's tough, because it's harder to find. And then you've got to get it into planning. And then how long's a piece of string? And knocking on big doors for big deals, it is another level of due diligence and data and information for you to have the confidence to go, this is worth it at this level. This is the risk and reward profile for this deal is exactly where we need to be. So that inevitably causes things to kind of feel like they're slowing, although it's that we tell ourselves internally is that kind of daily habits of like, just keep pushing, because we're not looking to acquire 50 of these, we're looking to acquire a couple. So it's, and we've got one in planning already. So it's kind of like, we can really start to build some momentum with a couple of these really larger units. So yeah, it's been a swings and roundabout situation for us on the developments for the past year, where we would love to have done, if we'd have done, and we've had so many conversations with potential deals and opportunities that have come up. For whatever reason, they've not come to fruition. And that's hard internally as a team, because you're there, you're committed, you've done your work, you're ready. For whatever reason, it's usually to do with the vendor and their expectations, or something somewhere along that line of command to the vendor that will make it not actually happen. It's hard to take the knocks, but we know from a business perspective that will pay off by being committed to it over the long term, because we're looking to own these things for we're passing them down to children, so it's.
Let's talk about these projects in a bit more detail, because I think for a lot of people listening to our podcast, a lot of investors who enter the HMO space, I think it's fair to say that HMOs are part of a bigger plan. They're often a stepping stone to bigger projects, to doing more, and to scaling up, which I get. I do commercial to resi stuff myself, as you know, but the jump is pretty big, I think. And I always try and remind people of this. It's certainly not impossible, but it is a big jump. The risks jump, the amounts of money jump, the number of opportunities jumps, and actually it isn't necessarily in the right direction every time. The timelines jump, and all of these become challenges. And as a growing business, these are the very real problems that you have to juggle amongst everything else, amongst paying your staff, amongst keeping your other tenants happy,
Yeah.
amongst looking for other types of projects, amongst continuing to engage with your audience. So let's talk about this, because I think that this is quite a good opportunity to be really honest about actually some of these challenges, and the scale of some of these challenges, and perhaps why at the same time focusing, or certainly initially focusing on getting that bread and butter stuff up and running and working is so important. Because do you think it's fair to say, and we've had these same troubles, Jade, with commercial to resi stuff,
Yeah.
you look at stuff, you go in, you spend some time, you do all your work, you due deal, you get there, and then all of a sudden it falls out of bed for whatever reason. The vendor's changed his mind, we get gazumped, you get a knockback in planning, whatever it might be, and it's really, really disappointing. But for me, that blow is softened because it's not an absolute necessity. It's definitely something I want to do, and it's a direction we want to travel in. But it's not, the success of that is not contingent on being able to continue running the business, or vice versa. Because the HMO stuff is there and that continues to work, and it continues to work very well, it almost gives us the luxury to do these other projects. Hopefully they come off, but sometimes they don't. I think some people, and this is just my opinion, but I think it's a valid opinion. I think some people are in quite a rush to transition quite quickly from these small projects, these bread and butter opportunities, even though, as you said, it has been tough in the last couple of years to get your hands on them, into these bigger projects. And for a lot of people, it can just be a leap too far. Do you think there's some honesty in that? Do you think there's some truth in that, Jade? Do you think that this is something that people need to be aware of? Or, actually, would you, from your own experience, recommend that people try and do both, or really almost double down and try and make it happen? What do you think?
Well, to put some perspective into it, we've been doing property for over 10 years, HMOs for 5 or 6. And it's the past year that we've started to go into this larger scale development of 40 beds plus, because we've got the experience, the people around us, the contacts, the knowledge, and so on and so forth. That takes time to build that up. You don't look at the sort of stuff that we look at you don't kind of put your finger in the air and go, I'll have a go at that, which is absolutely how I started out doing HMOs. And I've always been so honest about that. This feels like it would work. Let's do that. We'll work it out as we go along. You can't do that on the big stuff. You cannot do that. I mean, the due diligence process alone, because you do this, your lenders are going to put you through so much as it is. So you've got to do all that to save yourself thousands of pounds worth of fees just to get the lenders to look at it. So that alone, just to do these bigger deals, is you need 20 or 30k in the bank as basically like, I'm prepared to chuck this in to make this deal work. So that's the skin in the game before you've even really got started. So you want to make sure that you're really covered and you've got the experience, and you can, like I said, put your hand on your heart and say, this is the deal to be done for these reasons. And I'm committed to that. Definitely don't jump into it, because if you see people online giving it the big one with stuff like this and they've just started out, then let me tell you, it's all rubbish, because it's not easy. And I've got a team, right? I've got a team of, like you talked about Kevin then, he's a lawyer. My husband, we've got a massive construction company that's been going for 12 years, really well established. We've got our own management systems. I've got a PA, I've got a marketing team. Like, we do all this stuff, and it's still like,
It's still hard work.
yeah, do you know?
Does it always work?
Yeah. So I think if someone's earlier on, I'm not going to use the J word, the journey word. If someone's earlier on, like, I don't know, either you get yourself an incredible mentor and you've got deep pockets, but the bread and butter's where it's at. You hear me say this all the time over the past couple of years. I'm a big believer in what I refer to as shop floor up. So learn your craft from the shop floor up. There's no danger in that, because I'm a retailer by trade, so everything comes back to retail with me. So, get the small stuff, like go through that process, systemize it early. God, I wish I'd have done that. I didn't do that. It come around to bite me. I had to systemize. Systemize in the early days, build those relationships with your brokers, people who can do development finance, the correct insurers. Build those relationships and, work with them and build your own confidence and knowledge base before you think about, or maybe I'll buy this factory and turn it into 100 student rooms. Like, you know. Anyway,
I,
soapbox
I
away.
Well, I think I think that this is a good conversation to have, and I think actually looking at what's likely to be ahead, which is a change in the market conditions, more market opportunities, definitely more opportunities in the commercial space, because I think it seems natural that some businesses and business owners are going to find that they struggle
Yeah.
for various reasons, but I think there'll be then a natural inclination of investors to be distracted by these projects that all of a sudden look like great value and look like they could be fantastic. And that excites me too. But at the same time, I think without the fallback of that experience, without the fallback of that recurring income from a number of HMOs first, I think it makes it incredibly tough. And I think that's the bit that people don't see. We see what's on social media. We see people putting the pictures of the great new plans or the planning approved, and actually we don't really see what's been involved in that. We don't see that it might have taken them 3 or 4 attempts through planning and nearly 2 years to get that planning permission. We don't see that actually maybe they under budgeted by sort of 30 or 40%, and I've seen this personally but not necessarily publicly, and these are really for some people business threatening scenarios. You get it wrong because the amounts of money and the time and the commitments are so substantial. So I think it's nice to hear from someone like you who's got all this experience that it is still incredibly tough, and it's just good to have that reminder if we're feeling like that ourselves. It's okay, but also maybe we don't need to worry too much about it. Maybe we can rein it in. Maybe we can stay focused on the smaller projects and just build that, I suppose, backstop, build that stability first and foremost. And I think, as well as the commercial, I actually think that we're going to see some price changes in the residential market, and I think some of that will be HMO stuff. The Article 4 direction is obviously a limiting factor, but that's not changing, and we need to be able to adapt to it. So either we change our expectations or we just continue to work harder and harder and harder. And I suppose I don't know if what we're saying here is pick one or the other. I think we're just saying, look, this is the reality of it. It's actually really not that easy, even if it might look easier or look a bit cheaper. And perhaps it's a good idea to have your bread and butter in place first. So focus on that, get that stuff in place. And I think that just gives you a much better foundation to move on and then look at the bigger projects, take more risk. And are you finding now as well that some of these things that you are discussing, you're playing around with in planning, that you're offering on, are these, or do you think there's the possibility that some of these will come back to you, even if they've been a no or you've been knocked back now because of what's going on?
I mean, I hope so, because I mean, the stuff that we've been, in discussions with is like A1 plus student accommodation in the city centre for me. So, some of the units have been like over 1,000 square metres, so that's a lot of bedrooms once they're converted. However, that said, sometimes vendor expectations, or for me, it's often, who else is in the mix, who's going for the deals, can often be a tricky scenario to navigate as well. But I would love to think that some would come back round.
Do you mean that that some of these sort of really prime buildings that there's people know people, and sometimes
Absolutely.
it's difficult to
That's exactly what I'm saying at this development level, and we've got a mutual friend who works at this level as well, and he's very open about this. Like at this level, it's kind of, if you've been around for a very, very long time, you're really well established and known, you tend to get things to come to you first. And I think this is, one of the things why I am so focused on this commercial conversion strategy in the city centre for student rooms, because for me, when I'm looking at a building, I'm not just looking, okay, like, this is an asset, right? So I can get 50 rooms out of it, it's going to make me X amount of money, retire on a beach, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm looking at it going, yes, it's an asset, it's going to do this, but from a business perspective, how else can I make money? How else can I raise my profile from this? How else can I increase the brand awareness of this building? This is an opportunity for me that's just way above like how many bedrooms spaces are in there. And I think, that kind of approach for me, it is what gets me really excited on the business and development side. And I think, once we've achieved that on a decent scale in the city centre, we'll probably get more opportunities come our way. That's the
And
nature of the beast at the development level.
I know one day I'm just going to be driving around the city centre, and there's just going to be a huge building with a big lightning
Oh,
bolt
it'll be
on the
loads.
side of it. We've focused on
Yeah.
one area of your business, and you know, in your intro, you talked about these different things and all of these businesses that you juggle, and it's a lot. And these have grown, and I know because obviously, you know, we see each other regularly and we work together. But I know how hard you've worked, but how much you've been doing at the same time. And talk to us about how you actually manage this and find the time and the headspace and the motivation to do all of this stuff, Jade. You've got two young kids. You've just finished the self build, the Dark Barn, a massive project. You had the kids to homeschool, you know, through COVID, like everybody who had kids. It was a real challenge. But how have you managed to continue to grow these businesses, build the hive and this huge female-only members club, and expand into the commercial space? How, on a very personal level, are you actually managing to do all of this?
Well, I mean, I'm the face of the brand, and I'm the visionary. You know, the person that comes up with the vision. But I'm part of the team. Like I mentioned before, part of the team of incredible people that are just as committed to what we're doing as what I am. So we work, you know, in unison. I think that relationship piece is just so important. It's not spoken about enough in what we do. You know, kind of like I'm the first one to go, right, I'm really not confident or great working on finance and data or operations. Right, let me build a relationship with an expert that can do this part. And you do that from a business perspective. Like if I focus on design and marketing and, you know, the stuff I'm passionate about, if I build a team around me and fill in the gaps together, we create like a really good business that can then scale up in different directions. The second layer to that, which is just as important, is systems, which I know is not a sexy conversation, but this came from me years ago when the kids were really small, and it's like I've got loads of work on, I've got people coming out of my ears, I've got tenants coming out of my ears. No systems, no processes, and I've built that, and I've learned to love them and respect them. And I don't say I built it. My operations manager really likes built them, but you know, we use systems and automation, and we're really on the ball with making the business, the internal side of the business, really efficient. And great for the tenants, or great for the clients on the consultancy side, or easier on the builders on the development side. It's just been all over that. And I guess the third part to it is, like, I've just come out of half term, right? So you know, when I'm on half term with the kids, and everyone's like, "Okay, bye," and I just put those boundaries in place with all of the people, my relationships, and say, "Look, it's half term with the children. I'm here on these days. I'm available then, or reach me this way." So like Slack, for example, and it just puts those boundaries in place. So all of these things that we've got going on can't all just overwhelm me at once. And that's how because you said, how do you manage it? That's how I manage it. I make sure that the systems and the people and everyone knows, everyone's clear. And then it's fun. Then I enjoy it. And I feel like the businesses, all the different parts of the businesses, they're absolutely ready for scale. Like I build everything to scale. You know, it's that idea of not being about being proactive, not reactive. Because I've been the other way before for many years, and it was awful. So,
Do you think that goal, that objective to make it fun, is that? Do you think is that where your motivation to actually continue to do it and keep building it comes from? Because I see a lot of people doing this and building these businesses, and actually they don't look like they're having that much fun. It is stressful. It's hard at times. It's really challenging. You know, like we said, it can, you know, feel like it's wasting a lot of your time and money at, you know, at different points along the process. Do you think it's that element of keeping it fun that gives you that motivation?
I think I'm really proud of the culture that I've created with the brand, and the way that, you know, I mentioned before about this is the Beespace way to do things in terms of we're led by design and we're led by value set. And I'm really proud of our internal culture and the fact that we're all on the same page and we're open and honest. And I'm always checking in with people saying, how's things? How are you doing? Are you happy about this? Be open with me. Like, how could we make sure you're all right? Make sure we change it, or, you know, just making sure that everyone feels equal and balanced within the business so that we're all on the same page and we can move forward. And ultimately, I'm not going to do anything if I'm not enjoying it, because I've got the attention span of a gnat. So, because I'm creative. So, it's really important to me that that's part of the bigger business that we all work for. And it continues that way. Even down to the properties, like for the students and stuff, I've got such an itch to get into some big, juicy buildings to create some madness for the students to live in. Like, I know, because we have properties that go viral on TikTok, and they're doing this and they're doing this video and that video, and I know that they love the spaces that I design and that's created for them, and I want to do more of that. That's a really positive energy to deliver to young people as well.
You can hear it coming out of you, your enthusiasm for it and your passion for it. And I guess that's what I said. This is what we see in your projects. And I'm not surprised they go viral, because they are literally, I can only imagine they walk into their houses, these students, and I'm like, oh my God, I must have the best, literally one of the best houses in the country.
Yeah. Okay. So two things there. The first thing is, often it's the parents that react even better. They're like, their minds are blown when they go, and they're like, wow. However, the dark side to student stuff, and this is an episode for another time, where I'm going to go with this, is that yes, last year we handed over one of my best ever HMOs to a group of 5 girls. And when they handed it back to us in August, when I was on holiday, to Eli, my operations manager, they'd absolutely trashed the place. So sometimes handing over a great product doesn't always play in your favour, but 9 times out of 10 it does. So this is the dark side of sometimes of what we do, and taking so much pride, is that it's not always looked after.
That's right. That there's pros and cons to everything, and definitely,
it's not all wonderful, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, to the student market in particular.
Yeah.
But then we've had the same in some of the professional houses and rooms in some of the professional tenants. I use the word professional loosely, because I think really that should be determined by how you actually behave and conduct yourself.
Absolutely.
But you're right. These are parts of the challenge, and there's so much we can do to try and protect ourselves. But it's people slip through the net. Things slip through the net, and it's tough. I was just thinking, the first episode we did together, when you first came on the show, I think that was episode 11. That does feel like a long time ago. We talked about the importance of branding and design, and we've touched on some of that today. But we also talked about how to and where to, in part, display this and show it. And social media has been a huge part of your business. Still is, but how you got to where you are, meeting business partners, investors, opportunities, expanding the brand awareness. And we've talked a lot over the last couple of years and about how this has changed and how social media has changed and evolved. And some of the channels have evolved so quickly. I want to talk to you about this today, because when I discovered you through Instagram, however many years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, and Instagram was a very, very, very different platform then. Instagram was, it was all about pictures. If your pictures were good, you got the attention. And it has really changed. And one of the things that I think has changed massively is the amount of time you have to commit to creating engaging content now. I think we see some people post and share content that obviously hasn't taken that long to create. Let's say, for example, it's like a quote or something, and some people happen to get a huge amount of engagement, but that engagement is off the back of huge amounts of work and consistency. But I think that is few and far between now. I think there are only a few examples of that I see now. For 98% of users on channels like Instagram, I think Instagram in particular, certainly this is my experience, but it's much more challenging to get that attention, to display yourself in the right place. What do you think? How do you think that the channel, Instagram in particular, has changed, and what have you done? How have you pivoted with this? Because this was your stomping ground, Instagram.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's changed so much. I don't even know where to begin, really. I mean, I've always been open the past sort of year that I struggle. I have a real love-hate relationship with it, for many reasons, but I think ultimately my own personal experience with my own Instagram account, because my other one's my team run, but the Beespace one is me. You alluded to it there, content takes a lot to make, and when you're like you and I, and we're really proud of the content that we make and we want it to inform and inspire, I don't necessarily have lots of spare time to do that anymore. As I've alluded to, the things that I have to do day to day with the businesses and the children and so on. So I guess that for me has been one part of the kind of where I'm at right now with Instagram. The second part is that I really don't necessarily enjoy a lot of the content that's put out there anymore. Um, and particularly in our industry, I think it can be quite misleading. And for someone like me, it's quite demotivating to see, and it's definitely changed because of obviously what Insta wants to show you versus what you want to see is a different ball game altogether. However, this said, I definitely was my stomping ground, and if it is anymore, but I do have to have moments where I have a bit of a head wiggle, and I'm like, look, don't forget that you've basically built this business off the back of this Instagram account. It's given you everything. Don't get blasé with it because, like you said, I've met business partners, investors, tenants, different opportunities, clients, so on and so forth off there. So it's a really important part of kind of what I want to do moving forward as well. So for me, it's kind of digging deep and really seeing that the most important thing to get out of Insta, right, is not how many followers you've got. It's how many real relationships you've built from there, and therefore they equate to opportunities. So for me, it's about showing up in a way that I can, which for me is mostly on stories, actually showing up and being there, being consistent, and maintaining those relationships with those real people. Because the real people that want to be inspired by you and want to see your content they'll choose to see it. So it's kind of, I think we're just at that age now where it's like, if you've not got 100,000 followers, nobody cares. Like, you've got to monetize, but that's definitely not been my experience.
I think you've said some incredibly valid things there. First of all, you said, a lot of what we see really isn't what it actually is.
Yeah.
That is so true. And I think the more time you spend on there, the more people you end up speaking to and meeting, you really start to realize that. And I think that point around, it's not the number of followers, it's actually how well engaged you are with the followers that you do have. Again, it's so important. I know some people who post content every day. They literally wake up, plan scripts, record a video every single day, and that's tough. That takes it takes hours every single day, and they've got quite literally millions of followers, but they don't necessarily have any real relationships with these people. And what they also don't have is a way to serve these people. They've built an incredible channel with a lot of opportunity, but don't actually have a product to work with them. So in your case, business partners, deals, it's actually bringing people into the hive, for example. It's raising private finance. But if you don't have the underlying applications or platforms or projects to actually utilize to work with these people on, it can all be for nothing. And I'm seeing more and more of this, people who are kind of breaking the mold and managing to break free of those restrictions imposed by the algorithms now and get that better reach, but don't necessarily have anything to give them, which is a real shame as well. I have a similar relationship with Instagram as you do. I find it sometimes disheartening. So today's a great example. It's kind of Halloween, and I just posted something from home, like Gemma making a pumpkin, and the story, got 3 times as many views as a normal story. And I think that says a huge amount about what the channel has become. It's more interesting to see a picture of a pumpkin being carved than it is to talk or listen to somebody talk about a project. Because in fairness, we in our industry do that so regularly, and that's tough. The platform really rewards that engagement, but the engagement, we would like to think everybody's engaged in what we're actually talking about and what we're actually doing in the property space. But the reality is that's not how people's brains work. People are engaged by things that look nice, or captions that have, I suppose, a strong hook. Even if we're not looking for it directly ourselves or don't like it, when people are shouting about how much money they made on a project, and that's like in the caption, in the thumbnail, I'll watch it, even though I'll probably cringe, but I'll watch that over something else that could be fantastic and actually serve me some value. And that's because I've got that very same primitive brain, and that's just the way it works. And I think that that's a really difficult thing to manage on the channel now, and I'm aware of that. And the only thing really that I think found that I've got genuine results from is the consistency piece. Just continuing and just continue, and then the people who are really, really, really interested in what you are doing, they are loyal, they follow you, they engage, they reach out, they can help you, they're happy to help you back, they'll answer your questions, they're there to offer you some support when you've got some questions that you want to ask your audience as well. And for me, that has become the it was always important, but for me now, that is ultimately how I would describe what I do on social media. I just turn up and I'm consistent. I don't worry too much about creating the most unique content or creating something totally different, which is so difficult to do. I just turn up consistently and I just do my thing. And I don't worry too much about the results. Do you think what do you think that's a kind of a fair way to look at social media? Because this is, for a lot of people, and this is a question I get asked a lot on my one-to-one program, we hear it in the mastermind, should I be doing more? Should I be doing something different? But of course, it all takes time, and it can cost a lot of money. I know people bringing in videographers, and it doesn't necessarily have the results that they want. Do you think that consistency piece is as important as it ever was? Maybe that's even more important now than it was.
Consistency, yes, that's definitely for me, top of the tree. The consistency that you can manage yourself as well. But also, the big thing we're sort of focusing on, particularly in the Hive, is getting people face to face, because turning the social media into real life is where the connections, are made. And I think that that's really, really important, and that's definitely a focus for us moving forward. Is getting more people in a room, which is something we do with our member meets and stuff, because obviously it's all built from Instagram. I do think it's a tricky one to navigate as a business, but ultimately, for me, you've got to understand why you're there and what you need and what you want it to give you back. And if you don't understand that, then you're just basically throwing hours of your life away that are valuable. So that's why, for me, I won't post a lot if I've got nothing that's informative or inspirational, or I think's relative. I won't just bang that quote out that you mentioned before just so it's a post, because my audience sees straight through that. I want to give value. I want to, show up and be authentic. And I think having that strategy, but for me, everything's about strategy, because otherwise, what's the point in doing anything? But having that and saying, is this adding value to my business? Is this post, is this story adding value to what I'm trying to build for the greater? Or am I just wasting my time or trying to satisfy something that I think I need to do? Because you don't need to do it. It's got to add value to your business and ultimately to your bottom line. So it's just having that strategy in place. But consistency, has been over the years, has been the defining factor for both of us with what we do. Definitely.
You made another really good point then, about being true to who you actually are, and not just posting content for the sake of it as well. Yeah. I think that's true. Do you see people doing that, creating different types of content which clearly isn't them, doesn't resonate with their brand, doesn't really speak about who they are and what they do, and actually I think there's a real risk of damaging credibility on social media. Now we often think about building credibility in our audience on social media, but actually it's very, very easy to damage that credibility very, very quickly. Just one post or one video, we say the wrong thing, we do it in the wrong way, we offend some people, we just come across as maybe that person that isn't really doing it. That other example we talked about, perhaps we are the person who's really doing it, but it's easy to make content that doesn't seem real and genuine, and because it's easy to overthink this. So I think you made another really good point there, and I'd encourage our listeners to, like you said, just do what is true of themselves and share what they actually do, and try not to overthink of it. One of the things that I've done, and this was in part of COVID, and it was definitely as a reaction to the changes that Instagram made, was started to just spend more time on other channels where I found that there were different benefits to be had. I was a big user of Facebook sort of 10 years ago in our industry, and sort of 4 years ago moved over to Instagram, and didn't spend much time on Facebook for a couple of years, and I've gone back to Facebook and think Facebook is now great because I can have lots of meaningful conversation there. I can actually get involved in a conversation. I can share ideas. I can extract so much more. Whereas Instagram very much feels like I'm driving, down the road in a really fast car, and someone might, be on the side of the road and have a sign up, which could be interesting and could be good, but I'm going past it so quickly. I barely get the chance to even look. And of course, if I'm looking in the other direction, I might miss it altogether. And I feel like Instagram's really, really difficult. It's very hit and miss now as to what we do see and don't see, and that makes it tough to engage. But I think that piece around trying to build real relationships, trying to get in the room with people now, certainly post-COVID, has become so important. And I think this is one of the reasons why I love masterminds so much. I think they are great environments to sit amongst people who are actually doing it, who you can share ideas with, and you can leverage their connections. That there's that what is it, like that spider diagram idea? You're only so many people away from whoever it might be, sort of 3 or 5 removed. And I think that we've seen so many examples of that on the masterminds. I think more so than ever. And again, I think looking into the next couple of years, I don't know if you agree, but I think getting into the room with the right people, as hopefully we do find some better opportunities in the property market come about, is going to be so important.
No, 100%. I think it's a cliche thing to say, but after COVID, we all learnt that face to face is where the value's at, isn't it? And it's definitely where our focus is. Just flipping back to the Instagram thing, a point you made there is, and I always say this, don't I? Your social media is your CV, so you really want to be quite conscious about what you're putting on there at all times and making sure it's adding value to what you're trying to do. Because particularly with posting, it's going to be there for forever. So you've got to make sure you're saying the right thing. And you're not, as a mentee taught me this phrase a couple of months ago, showboating. And I was like, I've never heard that before. And I think that's probably one of the problems I have with the platform now, is that there is a lot of showboating. And actually, like when you look back through someone's feed, at actually the property they're developing, it's not there. And it's like, another one, and there seems to be this uprise of that sort of profile, or people trying to make out they're way more experienced than what they are. When I'm working with people, I'm always, they've initially come to me. One thing I'll say to them, and this is about the relationship thing, right? And eventually becoming face to face, is look for your tribe, look for your energy. The type of people that you want to be around. And this is mastermind what I'm talking about. What are you attracted to? And content's really important, because that is ultimately what you're going to be part of, the communities that you want to be part of. Like, you've got to look for the authenticity within content to see where you might belong in a community within our industry. And mastermind is like the ultimate version of that, isn't it? Because it's like they're real amazing business operators that are so focused, and they're going in different directions for different reasons together in a room. And that's really unique and special.
And you can't fake that environment.
You cannot fake that. No.
Maybe you could go to a network event, you could meet someone you don't quite know, but when you really get to know people, you can't fake that. You can't fake the projects that you're doing or not doing. You can't fake who you are. You can't fake the way that you do things, and that for me just carries so much value. And I guess bringing you on the show today was a tough gig, because I wanted us to do a really honest episode about some of the tough stuff that's perhaps most important to us as developers: deal flow, managing vendors, social media, and actually building brands. And this stuff, I think, is what I'm hearing from our community. And so this was always going to be a difficult conversation, because we weren't actually coming on the show today with a great win in mind. We were actually I wanted to do something really honest, and I think we've done that. But hopefully what we've done is actually remind everybody listening that it's not just you if you're experiencing this stuff. It's us as well. We've been doing this for a long time. Jade is an expert in branding and design, and been developing HMOs for 6 years, has a construction company, and still has found the last couple of years really tough with deal flow. So hopefully that reassures a lot of people that this is actually the reality. This is how it is, despite what you see on social media, which this showboating that we've talked about, these ideas, and the success that appears to be, in so many places, which perhaps just it really just isn't what it is, and that can get us down, it can slow us down, it can demotivate us, and actually for a lot of people it can be enough to just say, I'm clearly not cut out to do this, and I just don't think that's the case. So my parting advice today, I think from our conversation, would be, look, remember your bread and butter stuff. That's going to get you through whatever the next few years throws at us, and much beyond that. Yes, it's great to do bigger projects and scale, but make sure you've got your bread and butter covered off first. Secondly is, the social media channels have changed. We need to change with that as well. Be consistent, but be very true to who you are. Question everything, but remember to focus on actually getting in the room with people now, and not relying entirely on what you see and the messages and the exchanges that you have, and the comments and the likes and shares on social media channels as well, because that will only get us so far. And honestly, right now, it's not going to get us that far at all, is it?
No, definitely not. For me, always authenticity is key. Absolutely key. Know what you're about, understand what you're about, and roll that out. Stay true to it with the strategy in place, and then good things will happen.
Next year, then, next 12 months, we're getting close to the end of 2022, which is a pretty scary thought. But next year, are you still focused on bigger projects, Jade? Are you still going to be pursuing these?
100%.
Are we going to see some lightning bolts up around the city?
Well, yes, I've got 2 in planning at the moment, so I'm hoping they've been dragged out for months and months and months. So let's hope we have some results there. But we will just keep banging on big doors. That is what we will keep doing, because that they're just literally big doors. The decision has been made by us all, and we're just so super focused on it. So it's exciting.
It's really exciting, and we're a little bit too early to say too much yet. But for anyone listening who is interested in looking ahead to next year, masterminds are great environments. I am planning to do an episode to tell you a bit more about masterminds, and I'll be sharing some stuff recently in the next week or two. But we will shortly be releasing some information about Mastermind 2023. So if you do want to get in the room with the right people, if you do want to take things to the next level, and if you are finding that you're having these challenges yourself, but know that there is a way, and you really still do want to do it, then just keep an eye out for some more info about the Mastermind, because it's coming very, very soon, and Jade and I would love to talk to you. You can apply. It is an application-only process, but it is a great program, and the results that we've seen in the last couple of years, I think, just speak for themselves. But like I said, I am going to come back and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. We're not going to speak too much about it today because we're not quite there yet. We're making final plans and just sorting out renewals for next year. But Jade, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you for coming on and giving us a really, really, really honest episode about what it actually is like investing in property.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth doing, but for me, understand that 5-10 year plan, because you can scale up to things. You don't have to jump in feet first at the big stuff first. Be sensible.
Have fun. We talked about having fun.
Yeah.
And
sort your branding out.
Sort your branding out. Yeah. By the way, I mean, I refer a lot of people over to you, as you know. But you do it better than anyone I know. And look at the podcast brand and the roadmap brand. We've been able to do so much with that brand, and it was it was all you and your help that sort of helped bring it to life. So still hugely grateful for it.
Good.
And probably still owe you a lot of money for it.
I mean, but for your listeners, they need to know that when it comes to the conversations I have to have sometimes about some of the decisions I'm making with a business, it's you that I come to for a sounding board. So I do cash in my hours with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Jade. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Cheers, Andy.